Yeah, keep everything on your desk until the end, and we'll just turn it all in at the same time. Okay? If you will, go ahead and put your homework from yesterday out on your desk so I can just check that you've got it. And then we'll move on. We've got about 3 minutes left on the bell ringer. If you haven't gotten your phone out to sign in yet, go ahead and do that. Yes. I got a list. Yeah, in that cabinet, the top left-hand side.
I didn't get how to do it.
Okay.
I didn't understand.
Okay, if you didn't understand it, that's fine, but right now you shouldn't be talking. You should just simply be putting your homework on your desk. Just share with someone next to you. It just keeps getting worse, doesn't it? What? Good. What did you want?
No, somebody left.
All right, ladies in the back. You got stuff to work on? Get your homework out if you've got it. If you don't, it's late. There you go. That's life. Hold it in your desk. Texting the message Alexia Hines 603 to that number there, 1-747-444-3548. It's Becky. Becky. You're fine. Okay. As long as it doesn't end up in my Huh?
It's all my food.
You want me to put that like by the bowl? Get it out of your way. Just when you have to worry about it falling over. Yeah, we'll probably get it. When you have to worry about it falling over. You're right.
Yeah.
Still working on it, keep working on it, that's fine. We'll go ahead and get started on this. So the first question says, Pixar's Cars uses blank to create its storyline. And which type of figurative language does it use to create its storyline? Okay, so one person's on.
They won't let me type it in 3 times, so it still won't let me do it.
I see. 4 people are on. I think it'll give you some answer, it may just not give you a message back. So I think you're in it.
Yeah,
All
but
right,
I never send
so,
back a message.
yeah.
Because Audrey's used mine before and it never sends
Yeah,
back.
I don't know. All right, so 8 people say personification. If you are without a phone and you agree, raise your hand. Okay, looks like a majority to me. I agree. Why is cars personification?
Because the colors talk.
Yeah. Yeah, cars talk. They've got facial expressions, right? They've given them a lot of human characteristics that obviously real cars don't have in the real world. All right, the next one. Her smile shines like the sun. Is that metaphor, simile, personification, onomatopoeia, idiom, or hyperbole? Pretty quick. Pretty good majority says simile. Raise your hand if you agree with simile. Yeah, looks like most people. Why is that a simile? What 2 things does it have to do to be a simile?
It has to have like or as and
Yes. And something else. What else does that have to do? You remember?
compare two things.
It has to compare two things. What two things is this one comparing? Sean, what two things is it comparing?
Shines and so
Shine? What's shining?
Her smile.
Her smile. So it's comparing her smile to the sun. Okay? Alright, so that was number 2. Number 3. He is lightning on the racetrack. He is lightning on the racetrack.
Wait, what are the choices say?
Metaphor, simile, personification, onomatopoeia, idiom, hyperbole. Right now I've got one person saying idiom, 2 people saying, no, 3 people saying hyperbole, 2 people saying idiom. Okay, anybody have a different vote? Eugene?
Metaphor.
Metaphor, anybody else agree with metaphor? Okay, a few people. Anybody have a different vote besides those 3? Okay, why is this a metaphor? Jesse?
It's because like if you put he is like a lightning on the racetrack it would be similar, but it's not using like or as.
Right, it's not using like or as, so we know it's not a simile, but it's comparing 2 things. It's saying he is what?
Like
He is lightning, which means he's fast, right? If we wanted it to be a simile, we would say he's as fast as lightning, or he is like lightning on the racetrack. But this is a metaphor. You are comparing 2 things, but you're not using like or as. Okay, so nice job. Number 4, is that what we're on? Yeah. This book weighs a ton. This book weighs a ton. Got 3 people saying idiom. 1 on hyperbole. 4 on idiom. Don't let the majority sway your vote. Alright. Who agrees with idiom? Raise your hand. Okay. Who agrees with hyperbole? Alright. Why hyperbole?
Hyperbole is a exaggeration, and it's saying that it's way more than what it actually weighs.
Right. Do we know how much a ton weighs?
It's in a book.
Yeah. 2,000 pounds. Right? A book's not going to weigh 2,000 pounds. Unless it's just really, really, really big. Okay? So you're obviously exaggerating just how big the book is. That makes it hyperbole. I can see where you would want to say idiom because people say that all the time. This weighs a ton. A backpack weighs a ton. Right? But it's still hyperbole. You're still exaggerating. It's not really a figure of speech. It's just an exaggeration of the actual weight. Okay? Alright, the cat trying to get out of trouble smiled at me, and this is number 5. Trying to get out of trouble smiled at me. Number 5. Alright, I've got 6 on personification. Raise your hand if you agree with personification.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes we like to think that our pets are smiling at us. Sometimes a dog or a cat looks like it's smiling, right? But the difference is for us, when we're happy, our brain tells our face to smile. There's cognitive recognition and relay happening. For a dog, when it's happy, what does he do?
It's like when he's thirsty, he's like,
He usually wags his tail. He doesn't smile. Okay, a cat doesn't smile. I'm really not sure what a cat does. I guess it purrs. But they don't have a cognitive recognition of I'm happy, so I'm going to smile now. It's just something some dogs and cats can do. So this is giving a non-human something human traits or human characteristics. Okay, so it is personification. All right, the next one was the 6. It's raining cats and dogs. What do we think that one is? It's raining cats and dogs. All right, I think we're all on the same page. Raise your hand if you agree with idiom. Yeah. An idiom can be any type of figure of speech. All that it means is that it's been used so many times that it's almost like a common part of our language. I mean, we've all heard it's raining cats and dogs multiple times in our life. We all know that it means it's raining a lot or it's raining really hard because it's just kind of a common phrase in the English language. It's almost like everyday literal language. We're so used to it, we know what it means. Okay? That's when figurative language becomes an idiom, when it's just a figure of speech. We know not to take it literally. We know what the deeper meaning is automatically. Okay? So idiom on number 6. Number 7, the bacon popped and sizzled in the grease. The bacon popped and sizzled in the grease. What is that one?
Personification.
Is it?
No. Onomatopoeia.
Onomatopoeia, yeah. I see a lot of onomatopoeia up here. Raise your hand if you agree with onomatopoeia for this one. Yeah. What words in this sentence are onomatopoeia? Skylar? Sizzled and popped. Those are 2 words that reflect a sound. They give us a pretty good idea of what we would be hearing. So onomatopoeia for that one. Alright, moving on to number 8. The boys dived on the ball like angry dogs snarling over a bone. Yes, sir?
Wait. I don't remember.
Okay. Alright, you guys are doing better on this one than the other classes have been. This has got a lot of information in it that can be kind of confusing, but the most important word here is like. One thing is acting like another. What are the 2 things this sentence is talking about? What's the 2 main things this sentence is comparing to each other? Gavin? What 2 things are being compared in this sentence?
Boys and the angry dogs.
Yes, the boys are being compared to angry dogs, and it uses the word like. Now, snarling could make you think it's onomatopoeia. Could be argued, but that's not the most important. The fact that it's got animals in there could make you want to answer personification, but the most important information tells us that overall this is a simile. Alright, number 9. My sister is going to kill me when she finds out I got a stain on her favorite sweater.
Been there, done that.
Your sister's
Number 9
sweater.
done that.
No.
Alright. We're on number 9.
And it's
No, it was like.
Okay, so we've got a tie here.
No, I'm gonna say E.
You meant to say E?
Yeah.
So you said F?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now we have a tie.
Now we have a tie, I guess.
Wait.
Who agrees with hyperbole? Alright, who agrees with idiom? Alright. When you say your sister is going to kill you, is that a
It means like you're.
is that like a real reaction, like a genuine reaction, or is that an exaggerated reaction?
Your sister's
That
a serial
everyone-
killer.
It is an exaggerated reaction, so what does that make it?
Hyperbole.
No, hyperbole, not an idiom.
I meant to vote for her.
Idiom, guys, idiom is not an exaggeration. Hyperbole is an exaggeration. An idiom is a figure of speech, like it's raining cats and dogs. An idiom is a figure of speech that we understand automatically because it's used all the time. Hyperbole means you're exaggerating. So you know that when you take that sweater home and it's got a stain on it, your sister's not actually going to kill you.
She's gonna be really.
She's
mad.
going to be really mad. She might hurt you, okay? But she's not actually going to end your life, okay? You are over-exaggerating her reaction because you want people to understand just how angry she's going to be.
You never know.
Okay.
There's those kinds of people.
Yeah, that would be an extreme case and not
Anger
really.
management.
She could cut
Okay.
you and then it's infected.
We're not going to argue about that.
No.
Okay, the last one. I like ice cream. This one has an extra choice. G says, ever since April Fool's Day, Miss Hines has been trying to trick us all the time.
I just put me too.
So there's a good chance. There's a good chance that number 10 was a trick question. Okay?
Look at all of them.
I mean, it's kind of
Yeah, right.
obvious. I said F because that's what I did first.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah,
I appreciate your honesty. But Why is that not figurative language?
Because it's a type.
What's the problem?
You're just stating something that you like.
You're just stating a fact. So what kind of language is that if it's not figurative?
Literal.
Yes, literal. It's literal language. It means exactly what you're saying. But it's got the word like in it. Why is it not a simile? Yeah.
Because you're not comparing anything.
You're not comparing anything at all. Okay? You're simply saying, I enjoy ice cream. Alright? Literal statement, that's it, no hidden meaning. So if you will, if you've got a phone, go ahead and text the word leave, and that will take you out of the discussion. Once you've done that, put your phone back up here in the sleeve. I'm going to give you the paper that we're going to use today to take notes on. You can turn in all your work from today at the end of class, so we'll worry about that later, okay? Okay. We are talking about the phrase tag pyramid, which you've seen before, but you may have never heard it referred to as that. What it is the plot line that you've probably seen before in reading class, probably pretty recently. Lauren? Yes. So I'm sure you've done this before. You've heard most of the words that we're going to talk about for the phrase tag pyramid. But there may be some extra ones that you're not familiar with. Cole and Ethan, just pass the papers over. Yes. All right. Okay, so if you will, look at this paper. This side right here. At the top, put your name. This side right here, guys. I'm not worried about the back yet. At the top, put your name. There is an example or an image that is the phrase tag pyramid or the plot line. Look pretty familiar to most of you. It should. A lot of the words I'm sure you're familiar with. Okay. I probably have added in some more, so we're going to learn those today. But all of the terms here are listed. For each one, I've given you a definition, and I've also made like a short little phrase that might help you remember what it is. You don't have to write the phrase down if you don't want to, but you do need to make sure that you get the definition. The definitions for these terms will be on the test on Friday. Okay? So make sure you get those down, and I'll give you time to get each one down. So the first thing we're going to look at is the exposition, which is setting the scene. Here's your definition that you need to write in the lines next to the term. The writer introduces the characters and setting, providing description and background.
Teacher?
Wait, where is that one? On the lines next to exposition.
Oh, okay.
The writer introduces the characters and setting, providing description and background. If you just want to write down keywords, introduces characters and setting, description and background, that's fine.
I gotta see because of the glare.
Okay, so write down the words introduces, characters, setting, and write background. Get your keywords down on there just so you can recognize the definition. I figured you would do that. The Illuminati out of the pyramid. Wow. I'm gonna try to give you an opportunity every day to do the Illuminati. That's my goal now. All right.
But you like call us.
What?
Maybe we should call us then and not even make them a mover.
Yeah, there you go. He is obsessed with you guys. He needs to be a member. All right. So this is the point. There's a reason why it's just a straight line across and it doesn't go up at all. Nothing's happening here. There's no tension. There's no conflict. No complication of action. It's simply you're learning about who the character is, where they come from, where the story's happening. You're learning about the connections they have with the people in their life. Basically, the author at this point wants you to feel a personal connection to the main character so that you feel connected to the story. If you don't establish a connection with that character in the first couple pages or first chapter, you're probably not going to read the rest of the story. Especially if it's a long one. Okay? So that it's really important that author makes sure you feel connected. They make some sort of connection between you and that character so you'll finish the story. Okay? Next one, inciting incident. This is the Houston, we have a problem point in the story. Okay? This is when a single event signals the beginning of the main conflict. So one thing happens to cause the main conflict. Alright? So single event signals beginning of conflict. That one event could be a mistake that the character makes. It could just be something that happens to them. It doesn't have to be something they did on purpose. It's just something that occurs that at that point, you know something either good or bad is going to happen later. But this kind of changes everything.
They stained the sister's sweater.
Well, yeah, you stained the sister's sweater, yes. Actually, the inciting incident would be when you decided to take the sweater from her closet. Okay, that begins your day on some sort of track. We don't know if it's going uphill or downhill. But if you'll notice, that inciting incident is that corner right there where everything changes direction. It goes from just going straight across and straight up, right? This is that point when you're on the roller coaster and it's all facing vertically and you know that you're stuck. You're not getting off, right? Something is going on. So that is the inciting incident. It's that one problem that causes everything else in the story to happen. Rising action. I said it's complicated. The story builds and gets more exciting. That's pretty straightforward. Story is building, everything's getting more exciting. I said it's complicated, which is relationship status on Facebook, right? Because if you're saying things are complicated, that means there's a lot of stuff happening, but there's not any decision being made. Nothing's being established. Same thing in a story. During the rising action, there's a lot of stuff happening, but none of the characters are having to make a major decision. No major action is taking place. It's just one thing after another that's kind of building the tension and the complication as you move towards the top. So on the roller coaster, think about the anticipation you feel when you're at this point. You're going up the hill, you're stuck, you can't get off. You know what's coming next, and you're either really excited or really terrified or both. Okay? This is like my least favorite part of the roller coaster because it stresses me out.
Loop-de-loop is fine.
Really? This part right here is the reason why I can't ride a roller coaster that's open on the bottom, because I have to be able to just stare at my feet the whole time I'm going up the cliff. And if I can stare at my feet and see the ground past it, I'm just going to freak out more. That's kind of how you are in this point in the story. All of these things keep happening and you don't know what it's going to lead to, and you're kind of stressed out for the character. Okay? It's anticipation. It's being stressed and scared, but also excited because you know something's coming. Jeff?
I know what to do. It's
What?
really funny. Alright, take like a rusted nail, like a rusted bent nail, and keep it on you and go on a roller coaster, right? Sit on that person that looks like really, really nervous, like they're about to freak out, and then whenever you get to the top, pull it out and say, hey, where did this come from?
That's terrible. And I would freak out and want off at that point. But anyway, the story is getting more exciting. You get the joke.
seat's loose, oh my gosh.
It's okay. Alright. But the story is getting more and more exciting, and it's building towards the tension. It's building towards the climax, which is the point of major tension. So your definition here for climax, this is the most exciting event of the story to which all the action has led. Okay, so it's the most exciting event in the story. That's what you need to write down. Most exciting event. Tension is one of those things we talked about when we were going through and grading your narratives, and we were grading Miss Sadie. We counted tension as one of those narrative techniques. It's one of those things that keeps the reader invested in the story. For Miss Sadie, remember we decided the point of tension was when she walked up to the door and Miss Sadie was like, I don't remember who you are. Okay? This is the point when everything's kind of coming to a conclusion or to a point. It's the peak, and you know something's about to change. So this is the point on the roller coaster when you get up over the hill and you can see down the hill, and you know that's where you're going, but you're not there yet. Okay? Yes? Yeah, go ahead. So that's where this is. All of your anticipation has built towards this moment. You're looking over into the vast emptiness, and you know that you're about to go down that hill. a decision has to be made, a turn has to be made, something.
What was?
We'll, we'll go to that first. So, tension, most exciting event is what the climax is. It's the climactic moment. Most exciting part. Alright. Tension of the climax leads into the following action. It's going down, literally going downhill. Events are happening as a result of the climax, and we know that the story is going to end soon. Okay, so events are happening because of the climax, story's coming to an end. Alright?
It's on timber too.
Huh?
They're going timber.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But something happened here.
That's headset.
Something happened here, and if you read here, it says reversal. Something has changed, the focus has changed, and now it's all going downhill instead of up. So your anticipation is kind of gone. Now you're just waiting to see how everything unfolds. How is this gonna end? Something major has happened, and we don't know what that's gonna cause, okay? I will say somebody asked first period. Not loud enough for the bill today. Somebody asked first period, does every story have a climax? Because not every story seems to have an exciting point. If a story's not exciting to begin with, it's not gonna have a super exciting climactic moment, okay? It's just gonna have a moment when a decision has to be made. So it would be like me, huh? I mean, it would be like me telling you the story of my spring break and how I went apartment shopping. The climactic moment, I mean, that would be a boring story, right? The climactic moment would be when I have to decide where to live.
And then,
I mean, you
And
know,
then I sign the lease. And that would be it, right? That would be the climactic moment. It's not fun, it's not exciting, but it is a point when everything changes. So I go from having to search for all of these things, the anticipation of finding the perfect one, to lease assigned, decisions made. Now I just have to move all of my stuff.
right? In a story like that, I mean, we all know what's gonna happen, I guess.
Yeah, basically. And so there's not really a lot of anticipation. You know where it's leading.
Unlike Harry Potter and everything, it's like,
Yes.
gosh, what's
Yeah.
gonna happen?
An adventure story, you don't know what's coming. There's twists and turns, and that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be entertaining.
It's like a puzzle.
Yes, but the point is that every story follows this arc, whether it's super dramatic or not, depends on what kind of story it is, but they all follow the same procedure. Okay? Even if we don't realize that's what they're doing, they all build to a decision point, and then the results of the decision come in. Okay? Alright, and then that leads us to the resolution. That's when the problem is solved. So the character solves the main conflict, or someone solves it for him or her. But the conflict is solved is the main point and what you need to have on your paper. Everything's fixed. We know how it's gonna work out. It's all good. This is the opposite corner, so the inciting incident was where direction changed and it went from just a straight line to going uphill. The resolution is the opposite. We're changing it from an incline to just going straight across. Yes.
What was the following action?
We'll take care of it afterwards. You can get it from somebody once they've got their notes done. But this is another change in direction. That problem is solved. Now what? It just kind of calmed off, leveled off, and that's it. Seth?
when are we gonna read more and watch some of the videos of the Skeleton Creek thing?
Most likely we will do that Friday, maybe Thursday.
Okay.
Okay? But after the test Friday, we'll do that.
Or both.
Or both. Alright, so the character has solved the main conflict, or it's been solved by someone. Problem solved is the basic point. That leads us to this. The denouement. Okay? This is the point where everything is cleared up. Any secrets, questions, or mysteries are solved by the character or explained by the author. So everything gets an answer. Everything is solved. So this would be in a book, this would be like the epilogue. Think about if you read Harry Potter, at the end of the last book, they give you a glimpse into the future and you see Harry and Ron and Hermione and all of them dropping their kids off the train station to go to Hogwarts. So we know it's all worked out, they had a good future, they got a good life. That would be the denouement, okay?
And Harry
Yes.
doesn't.
So like, what if there was no ending?
Sometimes there's not. Sometimes it will just close off at the resolution.
Or like, what if
Not
there's
what-
not even a resolution? It's just like,
That would be a cliffhanger. Okay, and sometimes authors make that choice. Typically, if they make that choice, it's because they're going to write another book. Okay, and that's a good question to bring me to this point. Think about Harry Potter. There's 7 books. If there wasn't a conflict at the end of it, we wouldn't want to read the next one. So she doesn't solve everything. Okay, or think about Hunger Games. What authors do in that situation is they solve a minor resolution. They give you a minor resolution, but there's still an overarching conflict. So say Hunger Games. At the end of the first book, the minor resolution is that she survived the arena, she's home, PETA survived the arena, and they're done with that.
Spoiler alert.
They're alive. Okay, hopefully you already know that, it's been out so long. But they're alive, okay?
And then there's like an ending that makes you feel like there's gonna be another.
Yes, what they do is that there's an overarching conflict. Over all 3 books, there is still the conflict between Katniss and the Capitol, between her and President Snow. So even though we know she's alive and that problem has been solved, she survived the arena and made it back home, there is still a huge conflict between District 12 and actually a lot of the districts in the Capitol. And that's going to follow you through into the next book and the last book, okay? Harry Potter does the same thing. Every book, you get to the end of the school year, you know he's going home for the summer, everybody's alive and happy, right? They're usually laughing, but we know something's going to happen again. There's still more conflict. He's got to go home to a family that doesn't even like it, right? He's going to come back to school next year, there's going to be a problem. We know that. You know who is still out there, okay? There's still an overarching conflict that carries you off into the next book. That's why how movies have sequels. They end you with something so you know there's still a big conflict, but the minor conflicts of the story have been solved.
I was just glad that they removed it, but I mean, like they involved the Full House series and everything. They're actually bringing it back, and like they're having all those characters do that.
Yeah, and what they've done is they've introduced a new conflict. I think what they're going to do is it's like DJ and the sister and her best friend, and they're all going to live in the house together. So they're introducing a new conflict to start a different part of the same storyline.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
I mean,
Full
like
House is
movies-
coming back.
I mean, like
Only on
movies like.
Only on Netflix.
I mean, like movies like Sharknado. I mean, it didn't tell you that it didn't give you any ideas that there should be a.
And sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's just a decision of, hey, we should do this again. Like Full House, they didn't know they were going to do that again like 20 years later. They're just like, hey, people will watch this if we put it on Netflix. Let's make this again. So they're going to have to reestablish the storyline and make a new conflict. And that's kind of what Sharknado
Or
did.
like Star Wars or something.
Yeah, yeah. They just make a new conflict and start over. Yeah. This is also the point when the author may tell you the moral of the story. They might tell you what the lesson is. When you're writing your narrative, this is the point when you're going to let them know why they needed to read your narrative, why it was important, what lesson you learned from your experience, anything like that. And I'm saying it's wrong. It's denouement. Like I completely blank. Denouement. It's a French word. Okay. But it just means it is the end. Everything's finished. It's explained. You know exactly how it's going to end. All right. So do me a favor. Turn your paper over. You should have something that looks like this. This is kind of a simplified or complicated. I don't know, but it's the same chart, just set up in a different way so you can fill in the information. So what we're going to do is I'm going to read you a story. As we go through the story, you can write down the information you know. After I finish it, we'll just talk through it and fill in the information for it. It's short. It's a kid's book. It won't take very long. It's Ferdinand. But we're just going to kind of practice with this. And then tomorrow when you come in, we're going to do the exact same thing, but with a SpongeBob episode. Okay, so you get to watch SpongeBob more. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Alright, so right here on the title, I need you to write the story of Ferdinand. And his name is Ferdin and. Okay? Yeah, and then it was written by Monroe Leaf. Like a leaf on a tree.
That's a stupid name.
It's a weird name. I will agree with that.
Monroe.
A Monroe. Okay, so what you should be able to fill in yourself is setting and main characters. The setting you should figure out on the first page. Main character you will figure out on the second page. So go ahead and write those in. If you want to leave the rest of it for afterwards when we talk about it, that's totally cool with me. but you will probably be able to fill in point of view. Is it first, second, or third point of view? If you know that, you can go ahead and write it in the box. And then we'll figure out the inciting incident, the rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution together. The denouement is here. I wrote it to the side on yours, so we'll just write that out to the side when we get to it. Okay? If you've ever seen The Blind Side, this is the book that she reads to her kids in that movie. Okay? Alright, the story of Ferdinand. Once upon a time in Spain, there was a little bull, and his name was Ferdinand. All the other little bulls he lived with would run and jump and butt their heads together, but not Ferdinand. He liked to sit just quietly and smell the flowers. He had a favorite spot out in the pasture under a cork tree. It was his favorite tree, and he would sit in its shade all day and smell the flowers. Sometimes his mother, who was a cow, would worry about him. She was afraid he would be lonesome all by himself. "Why don't you run and play with the other little bulls and skip and butt your head?" she would say. But Ferdinand would shake his head. "I like it better here, where I can just sit quietly and smell the flowers." His mother saw that he was not lonesome, and because she was an understanding mother, even though she was just a cow, she let him sit there and be happy. As the years went by, Ferdinand grew and grew until he was very big and strong. So he's pretty big, very intimidating bull. He's pretty muscular for somebody who just sits and smells flowers all day. And he's actually the biggest in the pasture. All the other bulls who had grown up with him in the same pasture would fight each other all day. They would butt each other and stick each other with their horns. What they wanted most of all was to be picked to fight at the bullfights in Madrid. But not Ferdinand. He still liked to sit just quietly under the cork tree and smell the flowers. One day, 5 men came in very funny hats to pick the biggest, fastest, roughest bull to fight in the bullfights in Madrid. All the other bulls ran around snorting and butting, leaping and jumping, so the men would think that they were very, very strong and fierce and pick them. Ferdinand knew that they wouldn't pick him, and he didn't care. So he went out to his favorite cork tree to sit down. He didn't look where he was sitting, and instead of sitting on the nice cool grass in the shade, he sat on a bumblebee. Well, if you were a bumblebee and a bull sat on you, what would you do? You would probably sting. And that is just what this bee did to Ferdinand. Wow, did it hurt! Ferdinand jumped up with a snort. He ran around puffing and snorting, butting and pawing the ground as if he were crazy. The 5 men saw him and they all shouted with joy. Here was the largest and fiercest bull of all. Just the one for the bullfights in Madrid. So they took him away for the bullfight day in a cart. What a day it was. Flags were flying, bands were playing, and all the lovely ladies had flowers in their hair. They had a parade into the bull ring. First came the banderillos with long, sharp pins with ribbons on them to stick in the bull and make him mad. Next came the picadores, who rode skinny horses, and they had long spears to stick in the bull and make him madder. Then came the matador, the proudest of all. He thought he was very handsome and bowed to the ladies. He had a red cape and a sword and was supposed to stick the bull last of all. Then came the bull, and you know who that was, don't you? Ferdinand. They called him Ferdinand the Fierce, and all the banderillos were afraid of him, and the picadores were afraid of him, and the matador was scared stiff. Ferdinand ran to the middle of the ring, and everyone shouted and clapped because they thought he was going to fight fiercely and butt and snort and stick his horns around. But not Ferdinand. When he got to the middle of the ring, he saw the flowers and all the lovely ladies' hair, and he just sat down quietly and smelled. He wouldn't fight and be fierce no matter what they did. He just sat and smelled. And the banderillos were mad, and the picadores were madder, And the matador was so mad he cried because he couldn't show off his cape and sword. So they had to take Ferdinand home. And for all I know, he is sitting there still, under his favorite cork tree, smelling the flowers just quietly. He is very happy. The end. So who's our main character?
Ferdinand.
Ferdinand. So where it says main character, we can put Ferdinand. Who else could we consider a main character? Maybe his mom, Ferdinand's mom. So Ferdinand and mom. What's our setting? Spain. Any other ideas? Madrid. What else? Under the cork tree. We could say all of those. Spain, Madrid. We could say pasture and cork tree.
I've never seen a cork tree.
Me neither, but that's, I mean, you've seen a cork before, right? That's what it comes from. All right, inciting incident. What do you think is that one event that makes everything in the story happen?
He sits on the bait.
He sits on the bumblebee. Let me ask you this. Why is it not when the men show up?
They didn't like him at first because he didn't.
Yeah, if it hadn't been for the bee, he would have just sat under the tree and they wouldn't have picked him. When he sat on the bull, that's when he got all of the attention, right? What is the point of view? First, second, or third?
Third.
It's third person point of view, right? If it was first, it would be from Ferdinand and he would be saying, ah, this happened to me, okay? All right, so if our inciting incident is when Ferdinand sits on the bee, what do you think is the first part of our rising action? What happens right after that?
Well, I was gonna say, like, if it was from first person,
Mhm.
it wouldn't be much of a story.
Yeah.
It'd be like, I smelled the flower.
I smelled the flower.
The guys came, I still smelled the flower.
Yeah, that stupid bee.
The guys sat home, I smelled the flower.
Yeah, it would be pretty boring.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was in the middle
Yes.
of
They
the
sit on the bee?
Yeah, what happened right after he sat on the bee?
They picked him.
Okay, but right before that, what happened right after he sat on the
He
bee?
took and got up and he got like extremely mad.
Yeah, he reacted to the bee sting, right? So number one here,
He got mad.
Ferdinand reacts to bee sting. And then he just goes crazy, right?
Maybe they should put like lots of bees in the,
Yeah, they should just fill the arena with bees, yeah.
and be going
Alright.
crazy.
What happens right after he reacts to the bee sting? What do you think? Yeah, the men from Madrid choose him. They think he's fierce. Okay, so the men from Madrid think that Ferdinand is fierce and they choose him. What do they do after they choose him?
They tried to irritate him at the bull.
Well, that's later, but as soon as they decide he's the one they want, what do they do with him?
Take him to the.
They take him to Madrid. So men take Ferdinand away. Okay, as soon as he gets to Madrid, what's the first thing he has to do?
He gets out of the arena and he sits down.
Is that, yeah, we're just gonna say,
I mean, he gets out in the arena.
yeah, he goes into the ring. So Ferdinand enters the ring. Okay, this is all the rising action. It has built us up to the climactic moment. What happens in the climactic moment? When he goes into the ring, everybody thinks he's the fiercest, toughest, roughest bull that's ever been. What happens, Lauren?
He sits down and smells the flowers.
He sits and smells the flowers. Because that's what Ferdinand does.
Smell flowers.
Yeah.
I smelled those beautiful flowers.
I mean, if it was from his point of view, he would be like, they made me go in this big area and I couldn't figure out what, but then I looked around and there were all these flowers and it just smelled really good.
I didn't know what to do.
Right?
I was over exaggerating. Now just sit down.
Yeah.
Wait,
So Ferdinand sits and smells flowers as our climax. Is there,
wait, what was it before?
Ferdinand enters the ring. Yeah. Yes.
When we're here, so like this, where it's like
and asked Ferdinand the Fierce into the ring. Everyone cheered and yelled, and then he sat down and smoked a flower.
Yeah. Okay, so what happens right after that? We gotta move quickly. What happens right after that?
They send him back.
The people that are gonna poke him and make him mad got mad.
Yeah, they get angry. So I'm just gonna say B and P get mad. The matador cries. Right? What happens as a result of their anger? What do? They send him home. So Ferdinand goes home.
You don't
Okay,
deserve to be.
so here to the side, I've got the denouement. How do we know how it ends? How do they solve all the problems for us, answer all the questions? What is the end of the story? Allie?
He sits and smells flowers.
He sits and smells flowers. He's at home under the tree. So Ferdinand, under tree, and he's happy. That is the end of the story. He has solved all of the problems for us. We know the end. The conflict is Ferdinand versus the arena. Okay? That's it. If you want to leave that on your desk before you go to lunch or turn it in on your way out the door, that's fine. Turn everything in. Bell ringer homework, what we worked on today, all of it. Okay?
Well, maybe like 3 minutes.
Alright. The SpongeBob episode is about 11 minutes long. So there will be 11 minutes of watching. I will give you 5 or 10 minutes afterwards to get the information you need. This is the information you need. I have written it in blue right here. Okay? Same information that you filled out yesterday, except you're doing it on your own on a sheet of notebook paper. If you want it to be visual and you want to draw out the plot chart, you can label it out that way. If you just want to make a list of the things you need and answer them like an outline, that's fine with me too, okay? Just make sure you give me this information. Tell me who the main characters are. Tell me what the setting is. What is the point of view? The main characters are the setting. As it's establishing that, that is the exposition, so you are answering the exposition by giving me that information, okay? The inciting incident, some of us have gotten stuck on that one. The inciting incident, Sam, turn around, is that one moment, that one event that takes place that sets everything else off. Sets off a chain of events, everything else happens because of it. So yesterday in Ferdinand, the inciting incident was when he sat on the bumblebee, right? If he hadn't sat on the bumblebee, nothing else would have happened. He just would have been under the tree in the pasture, and that would have been it. Okay? If we're talking about like Goldilocks and the 3 bears, the inciting incident is not that first bowl of porridge she eats or whatever. The inciting incident is when she decides to go in the bear's house. If she had just walked past their house and minded her own business like she should have, then none of the rest of the story would have happened and we wouldn't have the story Goldilocks and the 3 bears. It's that one decision the main character makes. It's an event that happens to them. It's one single moment that makes the rest of the story happen. If it wasn't for that moment, nothing else after that would have happened. Well, probably not. I'll just go through and grade them and then we'll go over it. Okay. Eugene?
Well, I mean, if she just stopped and walked by the house, it wouldn't be much of a story.
Exactly. We wouldn't have a story at all. Like Ferdinand,
Walked by the house.
like Ferdinand, if he hadn't sat on the bee, we wouldn't have that whole story. It would just be some bull that likes to smell flowers under a tree, right? So we probably wouldn't have that little dog. Yep.
Are you gonna give us one?
No, you're doing it on paper. So your choices, once again, your choices are either you can draw out the chart, which you have on your notes, you can draw one of these out, or if you want to do kind of like this is right here, just write inciting incident and then explain what the inciting incident is on the lines and explain it that way, that's fine. When you get to rising action and falling action, that needs to be numbered events. So like we numbered it, we said 1, he reacts to the bee. 2, they think he's a fierce bull. 3, they pick him to take to Madrid. 4, they take him away from the pasture. Number it like that when you get to rising and falling action, okay? Resolution is when everything is fixed, the problem is solved. If you don't see a denouement, that's fine. Just write denouement, write don't know, didn't see one, can't figure it out, something to let me know you at least thought about it. And that's good. Yeah.
I guess they gotta keep the story going, but I just, it gets me mad because, like, in the Fast and Furious, they had the guy, they had him surrounded with guns, and instead of just shooting, they sat there and talked to him for like 5 minutes, when one of them could have just shot him, and that would have been.
Well, it's kind of like every villain in a story, you know, they have that moment when the villain reveals his whole plan. You'd think eventually a villain would learn not to do that, right?
Shoot him,
But it's one of those, right, it's one of those plot structures that keeps the suspense going because you're like, oh my gosh, she's gonna do what? If you don't have that moment, you know, so they don't wanna just end it because they killed him, they wanna drag it out.
Like in Batman at the end, they almost like whenever Batman like ties his leg to the thing in and the Joker starts dropping instead of just letting him drop, he ties him to the thing.
Yes. So they just wanna keep the story going in one way. Any of these that you're confused on, that you need me to go over again before we start? Do we understand what we're doing?
Yes.
Got a good idea of what we're doing? You may not be able to answer some of it until after you finish the whole episode, like the inciting incident. You might not really know when it all begins until after it all begins, okay? You may not know what the climax is until the whole story's over, so I'll give you 5 or 10 minutes afterwards to write that information down. But you should be able to come up with the main characters and the setting within the first couple minutes. You've seen SpongeBob before, think about the main characters. If you know their name, there's a good chance they're a main character, okay? If you don't know their name, don't list them, don't worry about it. Yeah.
Does the ow my leg guy count as a name?
Okay, so if you don't know their name, they're probably not a major character anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Alright. Are we ready?
He's always on there.
Okay.
Every episode, yeah.
Jesse, will you hit that light right there, please? Thank you.
Geeks of the band.
Here we go. This is Band Geeks, which is my favorite episode of SpongeBob. I think it's the best, okay? Keep your ears open for the motivational SpongeBob speech in the middle. If you need to move to the middle of the room or something so you can see while it's on, that's fine. Utilize this space here, use the table, that's cool.
No.
Yes, ma'am?
Is she the one where they go like slide?
No, no, I don't think so. Yes?
Do we use the new sheet?
Yeah, just use a new sheet of paper and write the information on it. Alright, here we go. What? Did I hear my name?
You should exit.
Yeah, okay. Here we go.
What's with the?
The projector's going out, so half the screen is darker than the other half.